Israel's ancient workshop discovery. 5,500-year-old Canaanite blade factory unearthed in Israel. Archaeologists link discovery to biblical account. Archaeologists in Israel have uncovered what they believe to be the first ever Canaanite blade factory, an extraordinary discovery that offers new insight into one of the Bible's most frequently mentioned ancient people. Now it's time to dig into this one. Let's break it down on the AI podcast.
Imagine finding something ancient, not just a potsherd, but something that cracks open a whole view into a civilization, makes those old stories feel, well, real. What if, like, one single dig could rewrite what we thought we knew about ancient tech, how societies worked, and connect directly to some of the oldest tales ever told? Well, that's pretty much where we're going today. We're doing a deep dive into this really amazing discovery in Israel. It's being called the first ever Canaanite blade factory. And it dates back, get this, 5,500 years.
Yeah, and it's really more than just, finding old tools. This is about getting down to the beginnings of cities, of specialized work.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, how archaeology can actually light up the world we read about in ancient texts, like the Bible, for instance. It makes it physical.
Right. So the stuff we're drawing on today comes from reports and research talking about this dig. They're calling it the Canaanite Blade Factory, Bridging Bible and Archaeology. Pretty descriptive title, so yeah, get ready. We're going back, exploring how ingenious these ancient people were and what this factory tells us about, well, about their lives and their place in history.
Okay, let's start with the basics, the facts. Where exactly did they find this place? It was in Kiryat Gat, Israel. That's, about 40 miles south of Tel Aviv?
That's right. And the team behind it was the Israel Antiquities Authority, the IAA. They did the excavation work.
And what really makes this stand out, besides just how incredibly old it is that it's not just any factory. It's thought to be the very first Canaanite blade factory ever found. We're talking 5,500 years old. An industrial site from the early Bronze Age. It's kind of staggering. It really is. And what they actually unearthed there, it wasn't just interesting. It was pretty revolutionary for our understanding. The site showed clear production of these long flint blades and also massive stone tools. And the key thing here is that experts are saying this might be the clearest physical evidence we have so far of the Canaanites themselves. The people who originally lived in the land described in the Bible as the Promised Land. That this isn't just a hint they were there. It's like finding their workshop.
Wow. Just think about that for a second. Real solid evidence of people you read about in these ancient texts right there in the dirt. It makes them seem much less like names on a page and more like, actual people with sophisticated skills.
Okay, so let's unpack the technology they were using, because this is where it gets really fascinating, doesn't it?
Sure.
This wasn't just chipping rocks. Oh, not at all. That's what's so impressive. They found these large flint cores, right? And from these, specialized craftsmen were producing blades that were incredibly uniform, razor sharp. And these weren't just decorative. They were essential for cutting, for butchering animals, even for farming, like blades for sickles to harvest grain. Basically vital tools for everyday life.
And the IAA researchers, they specifically noted this was, quote, an advanced and previously unknown production technology. So something different.
Exactly. Something more sophisticated than just basic flint napping. And how did they get that consistency, that sharpness? Well, the speculation, and it's really intriguing, is that the technology might have involved something like a crane-like device to apply really precise pressure on the flint.
Like some kind of early mechanical assistance 5,500 years ago.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It suggests a pretty advanced understanding of leverage, maybe, applying force in a controlled way. This kind of thing would let them make blades that were exceptionally sharp and uniform. And it seems this was a skill that only a select group of specialists really mastered.
So not just anyone could do this. It was a specialized trade.
Definitely. Like a closed group, maybe even a kind of guild. It really challenges how we picture the early Bronze Age sometimes.
That's amazing. And then there's this other detail that sounds almost modern. The waste material. The leftover fragments from making the blades, they weren't just chucked aside, right? They were carefully managed.
Yeah, that's a really telling detail. They weren't scattered everywhere. And the experts looking at this, they believe this was deliberate, a conscious effort to, well, protect their trade secrets.
Protect trade secrets? Seriously, back then?
That sounds like it. To maintain control over this specialized knowledge. Think about what that means. It suggests they understood the value of their techniques, that maybe there was competition. It points to a society that was already thinking strategically about intellectual property, in a way.
Wow. Okay, so putting that together, This wasn't just some basic workshop. It was highly specialized, advanced for its time, and they were actively guarding their methods. That implies a pretty organized society behind it all, right? More complex than maybe we'd assume.
Exactly. That level of specialization, that secrecy, it points to something structured.
So what did that structure look like? What about the community around the factory? Was it just the workshop, or was there more to the settlement?
Oh, much more. This wasn't isolated. The excavations uncovered a whole settlement. And a key feature was finding hundreds of these underground pits. Not just holes, mind you.
Yeah.
Many were lined with mud bricks, carefully made.
Underground pits. What were they used for?
All sorts of things, apparently. Storage, obviously. But also dwellings, other workshops,
Yeah.
maybe even places for ritual activities. So it paints a picture of a really busy, organized community. Different zones for different activities. It feels planned.
The scale of it, the organization. That's the key takeaway here, isn't it? It wasn't just a camp.
No, definitely not. This shows that the Canaanites, even way back at the dawn of the Bronze Age, had developed settlements that were almost urban in style. They had specialized crafts, trade networks were likely starting to form, they were building a complex society.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from Dr. Jacob Vardy, he's an IAA prehistorian. He said, this is a sophisticated industry, not only because of the tools themselves, but also because of what is not found.
What does he mean by that? What's not found?
He means you don't find failed attempts or practice pieces scattered everywhere. He goes on, only exceptional individuals knew how to produce these blades. This is clear evidence, he says, that society here was already organized, complex, and professionally specialized. The factory itself shaped the society.
That really drives it home. The level of organization needed
I was
to
seeing.
support specialists, manage resources, protect techniques over potentially long periods. It paints a picture of a really established, powerful culture already in place in the early Bronze Age.
It does. It gives them a lot more depth than just people who were there.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to maybe the most resonant part of this for many people, the connection to historical texts, specifically the Bible. How does this discovery bridge that gap between archaeology on the ground and these ancient stories?
The timing and the culture line up in a fascinating way. The site is early Bronze Age, right? But the blade technology, the Canaanite culture it represents, it has continuity into the period we associate with the biblical figure Abraham. That's more Middle Bronze Age, say 2100, 1900 BC, roughly.
Okay, so there's a connection across time. And Abraham, for anyone listening who might not know, it's just a central figure. Patriarch in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The story is he moves to Canaan, makes a covenant with God, and this land is inhabited by the Canaanites.
Exactly. So this find shows us that the people Abraham would have encountered, or whose descendants were there later, they weren't just nomadic tribes. They had sophisticated settlements, advanced industries, established societies, long before and during these pivotal moments in religious history.
It adds a whole layer of context to those narratives.
It really does. And think later, you have Moses leading the Israelites towards the same land, still inhabited by Canaanites. This discovery helps us see those Canaanites not just as the other people in the story, but as a society with its own complex history and achievements. It fleshes them out, makes the interactions potentially more complex.
And they appear so often in the Old Testament, don't they? Genesis, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Joshua. They're a constant presence.
A major presence. And seeing their industrial capability like this, it adds weight to their role in the region's history. You know, there's a specific verse, Joshua 3.yen, where God tells the Israelites he'll drive out the Canaanites. It's easy to read that text and maybe imagine a less developed group being displaced.
Right.
But this find suggests these were people with, significant infrastructure, specialized skills, established communities. It changes the dynamic, potentially.
It gives that historical context a much sharper focus. We know historically there were conflicts. Israelites fought battles against Canaanites in the 13th century BC, eventually taking over much of the land.
Correct. And this archaeological site provides that tangible evidence, as the reports say, of the society that was actually there. It creates a physical link to those biblical accounts. It grounds those stories in a real, verifiable place and time with a society we can now understand a bit better.
Yeah, seeing the world behind the words is like moving from black and white to color, almost.
That's a good way to put it. It brings a different dimension to it.
So wrapping things up a bit, this deep dive into the Kiryat Gat factory, it's shown us quite a lot. We've seen this incredibly advanced ancient technology, this complex social organization, and maybe most profoundly, how these kinds of discoveries can resonate directly with histories and stories passed down for thousands of years. It's quite a connection.
Absolutely. And beyond the biblical connection, the site itself gives us critical insight into how urbanization and professional specialization actually began in the Levant, that whole region along the eastern Mediterranean. It's a case study in how society shifted from just subsistence farming to something much more organized, more technologically driven, laying the groundwork for everything that came after.
Yeah, the IAA itself called it a rare opportunity, a chance to connect the narratives with physical evidence, offering a, quote, deeper understanding of the world described in Scripture. And that feels really significant, to actually touch the material culture behind these incredibly influential texts.
It is. And I think the core message here from Kiryat Gat is just how specialized, how interconnected these ancient societies really were.
Yeah.
Maybe far more than we typically imagine, which leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other complexities, what other forgotten innovations are still buried out there?
Right?
Still waiting to be found, ready to reshape how we understand our own history, our earliest chapters as complex human societies. There's always more under the surface.
Okay, one question for you. What makes this 5,500-year-old factory unique compared to other archaeological finds in Israel? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.